Hello everyone and welcome to the House of Nostalgia. In today's video, we are discussing the amazing career of the Pointer Sisters. These ladies was one of my favorite groups in the 70s. And yes, I said the 70s because a lot of people didn't know about their earlier music. When I decided to make a video on these ladies, I felt that I knew everything about them. But as I was doing my research, I realized that there was a lot of things about them that I did not know. I kept noticing people labeling their music R&B, soul, and adult contemporary. Well, they can add country, pop, gospel, and even disco to that list. When the Pointer Sisters was at the top of their game in the 80s, their music was on the edge of the pop music that we hear today. They kind of calmed it down some. It was kind of wild in the late 70s and early 80s. People were actually putting the word pop music in their songs. Everybody wanted to be involved with this music. The Pointer Sisters accomplished something that only one group would ever be able to pull off in these days and times. I will explain that in this video. They were different from the start. Black female artists' options were soul and R&B, and then disco, which was short-lived. If you start talking about something different, the record company would show you the door. Ruth, Anita, June, and Bonnie helped change that forever. The Pointer family consists of 6 children. 4 girls and 2 boys. Their brother, Aaron Elton Pointer, played in the major leagues from 1963 to 1967, and he also played in Japan from 1970 until 1972. Their other brother, Fritz Pointer, was a college professor and author, and they were raised along with Bonnie, June, Anita, and Ruth by their father, Reverend Elton Pointer, and their mother, Sarah Pointer, in Oakland, California. They got their start performing in church with a strict upbringing, being the children of a reverend. They were kind of steered away from listening to anything other than gospel music, so of course they had to find creative ways to listen to other genres of music. After the sisters were grown, Bonnie and June were the first to step out of gospel music. Anita soon joined them. They started singing backup for different artists. One of the artists that stood out to me the most was Sylvester. I was a huge Sylvester fan. Now this had to be around the late 60s or maybe the beginning of the 70s because Sylvester's career didn't take off until around the mid 70s during the height of the disco era. And by that time, you would see him with the Weather Girls. So I was really surprised to know that they were with him at one time. They also sang backup for quite a few artists along with Grace Slick and Boss Gags. Now he had a good crossover song that I loved. They signed with Atlantic Records in 1971 and they released a few songs that didn't become hits. So they left Atlantic a year later and Ruth finally joined her 3 sisters. The Pointer Sisters didn't have any major hits with Atlantic Records, but when they signed to Blue Thumb Records, their career seemed to take off immediately after the release of their first album, named after them, the Pointer Sisters. Their first hit off the album was the song Yes We Can. This was released in 1973, and it was the first song of theirs to chart, landing it at number 11 on Billboard. This song was first recorded by Lee Dorsey in 1970, and I was a little curious to hear Lee Dorsey's version, and I was surprised that they sound the same. The song was recorded many times after the Pointer Sisters version. They recorded That's a Plenty in 1974. Now I mentioned earlier in the video that they had a church background and they dressed like it. Actually, they were known for this church style of dressing, or you could call it the 40s style. They were different. And I remember them dressing like this for a while, even in the 1976 movie Car Wash, where they had a cameo appearance as the Wilson sisters, who played alongside Richard Pryor, who played the character Daddy Rich. I believe they were dressed in white. Now, I know they were singing the song You Got to Believe on the Car Wash soundtrack, and I love that song. They won a Grammy on the That's a Plenty album in the country music category for the song Fairy Tale, which was written by Bonnie and Anita. I thought I knew everything about them, but I didn't know that. Also in 1974, they did a live album called Live at the Opera House. Now, they were pretty busy in the early part of the 70s. They recorded 5 albums between 1973 to 1977. And on their 1975 Stepping album, they had a nice hit with the song How Long Bet You Got a Chick on the Side. Now, this song was written by Anita, Bonnie, and music producer David Rubinson. In 1976, the sisters were asked by Sesame Street to record a song teaching kids how to count. So they recorded Pinball number Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
And it was played on Sesame Street for many years. Now, I remember that, but I wasn't a big fan of Sesame Street like a lot of kids were. I used to watch the Electric Company faithfully, and it was this program called Zoom, and those two were my favorite shows, but they didn't last as long as Sesame Street did. Now, after the 1977 recording of It's a Plenty, the youngest sister June left the group in 1975 due to physical and mental exhaustion. Bonnie left in 1977 for a solo career. Now, she stepped into the disco era with a few memorable, successful hits. Heaven Must Have Sent You was a big hit. Now, Tie Me to a Tree. Okay, that was a different type of song. Maybe you all should listen to that song and you all would understand what I'm saying. She had another hit song called Free Me From My Freedom. The group was left with 2 members, Anita and Ruth, and they took their time before they made their next move. Now, I honestly thought they weren't coming back. Their singing was legit, but that style of dress just wasn't it anymore. You know, people was dressing up, and fashion was everything in the late 70s and 80s. All you had to do was watch Soul Train around that time, and it'll show you how fashion was evolving. Anita and Ruth signed with Planet Records, which is an affiliate of Elektra Records. Now, signing was instrumental in the sisters' success because record producer Richard Perry was a promoter of Planet Records, and this was a win-win situation for both of their careers. June rejoined Anita and Ruth, and they truly started to create magic. They no longer dressed in church dresses and that 40s style. They were rocking, and they changed their look altogether to a more fashionable and sleek look. Well, it was a process. In 1978, they recorded the album Energy with the disco hit Happiness, which was written by Alan Toussaint, who also wrote Yes You Can. Now, I'm going to do a write-up on Alan Toussaint on my Instagram. The lyrics for the song Happiness were amazing, and the arrangement was brilliant. A lot of disco songs were simple, and that's mainly because it was all about the beat. You didn't even really have to have lyrics for disco. They had another hit on the album, the Bruce Springsteen song Fire. On their 1980 Special Things album, they had the hit song He's So Shy, which made it to number 3 on Billboard. And on their 1981 album, Black and White, they had the hit song Slow Hand, which made it to number 2 on Billboard. They had a good video for that song too. Their 1982 album, I'm So Excited, which was also the name of the song, was a huge hit. And all of their hard work led them to their 1983 album, The Breakout. And they named it right. because it was most definitely a breakout album. The Pointer Sisters were at the top of their craft, and they were sought after like never before. They were hot. This album had the Grammy-winning songs Jump and Automatic, 2 Grammys from the breakout album. Their videos stayed on repeat. Neutron Dance is another one of my favorites that was on the breakout album. I find it strange that neither of those songs made it to #1 on Billboard. I was really surprised by that. Now, one thing about the 70s and 80s is that age didn't matter, as it does now in the entertainment industry. If you had a hit song, that's all that mattered. The Pointer Sisters were in their late 30s or even early 40s, and nobody even paid any attention to that. It's really sad the way the business is now. You have ageism, colorism, body shaming. Everybody sounds the same, with the exception of a small few. You even have to be already established as an artist before you can even dare to be different. Like what I'm looking at with Doja Cat, whatever she doing. I'm tired of it before we even start, tell you the truth. It's only one girl group that could do what the Pointer Sisters did, and that would be if Destiny Child decided to do a reunion. They are the only ones who could do it, and they would be much older than the Pointer Sisters were. They recorded 6 more albums after their Monster album, and that's what I call exceptional albums, and won 3 American Music Awards in the Soul and R&B categories in 1985 and 86. 3 of the sisters passed away: June in 2006 at the age of 52, Bonnie in 2020 at the age of 69, and Anita recently in 2022 at the age of 74. Ruth was the last to join the group, and the only surviving sister who is still performing with her granddaughter, Sadako Pointer, and daughter, Isa Pointer. These sisters worked hard to get where they were. They signed their first contract in 1971, and in the 80s, we couldn't get enough of them. They were on the radio, in concert, on TV, and on posters everywhere. They were one of my all-time favorite female groups. I would like to thank you guys so much for watching this video on the Pointer Sisters.